Hi, I'm Scott. I've got a brand new toy here, an ASM Hydrasynth. I'm going to play with it and see what it can do and see what kind of sounds we can get out of it. I just unboxed this yesterday. I've had about enough time to go through the presets and listen to each one. I made a quick little demo song, really just something to try to get the different sounds in context of a song rather, just to see what it sounds like. I've just been trying to get my head around how this thing actually works and functions. Polyphonic aftertouch keyboard. I do not have a polyphonic aftertouch keyboard. Well, I do now, obviously. But all my keyboards, none of them have aftertouch. I have a Modi-X here, I've got a Roland System 8, I've got a CS, but they respond to polyphonic aftertouch. So now I have a polyphonic aftertouch keyboard. I can route this through my DAW, which is Cubase, into my other keyboards, and now I have polyphonic aftertouch. So this is now my performance keyboard that can play and voice on my other synthesizers, which is fantastic if I want to use polyphonic aftertouch. Another feature it has you don't see very often is ribbon controller. It's nothing new. It's been around for years and years. The Yamaha DX1 had it in, what, 1987, 86? But it's not very common on synthesizers now, but it's great fun, actually. I didn't think much of the ribbon controller when I actually was shopping for this, but now that I have it, I actually really like it. So it's got this nice little OLED screen that shows what preset we're picking here. Blade titles. Well, that sounds promising. It sounds like Blade Runner to me, so let's have a listen to that. Oh yeah. I'll just hold a chord here and then give it its push. And if you notice, it's polyphonic, so I can just pick one note out of that. And of course there's that ribbon controller. I should note as you're playing this, whatever note you're playing, whatever waveform it's generating is actually showing up like a little oscilloscope on the OLED display. Where that becomes kind of fun is really low frequencies. So here's that real low note. I'm going to draw down. So now this frequency is it's pretty close to 1 hertz. But because you see we've got those spikes in there, you're hearing that. So I draw my finger back up the ribbon controller. Of course, that ribbon controller isn't just limited to pitch. You could set it up to do amplitude, filter, or pretty much anything. It's just another input into the mod matrix. So whatever aspect of the sound that you want to control, you can do that with your ribbon controller or mod wheel or anything else, because again, we have that incredible mod matrix. The ribbon controller can also be used in theremin mode. So if I hit ribbon here, and then right now it says mode pitch bend, but I'm going to switch that to theremin. Now I have a theremin. And then my mod wheel becomes a volume. Other things like the effects, in terms of reverb and delay and waveform and so on, all come from the currently loaded patch. So if I pick a different sounding patch, maybe something like this, and then I select theremin mode. The theremin sound uses that patch sound. I can also quantize it so it won't glide between the notes, it steps between actual chromatic notes. And you notice when you touch the ribbon controller, it activates both the filter and the amplitude envelopes. I love the ribbon controller, if you can tell. All right, so here's another patch that's called Ribbon FX ARP. So obviously it's going to be arpeggio, and the ribbon controller is going to be mapped to some kind of effect. So let's find out what that does. So let's set up an arpeggio. And with the arpeggiator, there's a bunch of different stuff you can do. One of my favorite things is the ratchet. You can have it ratchet where every once in a while it sounds like it almost gets stuck and ratchets on a single beat. And then there's a probability where it will actually happen, where I can turn it down so it will almost never happen, or I can turn it way up so it's happening almost all the time. And you can set how many times it ratchets in each beat. That's all the way up. If I bring it down, there's a ton of, well, I was going to say ethereal pads, but that came into my head because the next patch on here is called Ether Pad, obviously ethereal pad, but it really excels at kind of weird sounding. And then you can change so many parameters on each of these. Each patch has a number of parameters known as macros that are assigned to each of these 8 knobs. Each time you make a change on one of these knobs, it affects that macro, and that macro could affect a number of different things inside the patch depending on how the patch is set up. So it could be items inside the mod matrix, could be filters, could be pretty much anything. They're all different, and it does say on the screen what it is for each patch. So if I change the patch, it will change what's actually going to be altered by the macro knobs for that patch. So while it uses waves as its oscillators, it's not using stored waveforms like a sampler might or a rompler, like my MoDX here. It plays recordings of sounds. This has tiny little recordings that may only be one cycle of a waveform, and it just repeats that over and over, and it can mutate and mod between those different waveforms. You can actually assign those different waveforms to any of the patches that you want, and you can sort of move between them and modify them and so on. So there isn't going to be a drawbar organ sound in here, but there's going to be a waveform that sounds somewhat like it, and through the use of various filters and so on, they can make it sound like an organ. I guess we'll find out. And we actually have lower, upper, so I actually see drawbar parameters in here. Lower, upper, verb, I actually see quite a few organ-specific parameters on the macros for this patch, so let's play with those. This is a digital synthesizer. It's basically a computer, and believe it or not, this is actually written in assembly. The operating system that makes this thing work was written in assembly language. Probably to a lot of you that isn't going to mean anything, but to people like myself, I'm a programmer. That's what I do for a living. I wrote assembler back in the 1980s, and I don't really care to ever do it again. It basically means you're writing instructions to work the hardware directly. You're actually writing processor instructions instead of a language you can actually read as a human being. But that's what this thing was written in, which is why it's so efficient. In any case, because it is a digital synthesizer, you can get some crazy metallic sounds out of it. Wave scan, I think that's a fairly decent one. This sound is actually a really good example of how the Hydrasynth can kind of mutate and flow from one waveform to another. You can actually hear it happening. I found that a lot of learning this synthesizer is just picking a preset, pressing the button, and twiddling knobs to see what they do and see if you get something interesting. I definitely have not had the time yet to really get my head around how it works internally. I haven't even touched the mod matrix yet. I've read about it. I have not yet tried working with it. I have the Arpeggiator pretty well down. Ribbon controller, mods, mod wheels, so on, patches. I've gone through the system setup. I'm nowhere near being able to actually create a sound on this yet. However, for people like myself who haven't had the time yet to exactly figure out how sound creation is done on this, I've read the manual from front to back. I have a good idea of the internal architecture of it. I have not yet attempted to create a sound. However, there is a simple button right here called random. You press it, it says generate a patch. I'm going to say yes. Okay, we now have a new patch. Sometimes you create a patch and you get nothing, silence. But that's okay, you just hit it again, try something new. So I just created this one. Okay. Let's try another one. So if you're somebody who's not really into sound design and doesn't want to learn about syncing oscillators and envelope filters and LFOs, well, hit random, and when you get a sound you like, hey, maybe I'll save that one. Or you start adjusting filters. Maybe LFO. If you don't like that one, try again. I don't like that one. There's a few patches in here where you know the sound designers have had a little bit of fun. For instance, Cyberdyne. I think you can guess what this sound is from. Or how about Baba O'Rowley? Or how about 10101? Well, that's probably going to be some kind of digital thing, I would think. Very aptly named. But I saw one, oh, there it is, tone wheel. And if you notice, on Tone Wheel, we look at our macros, we've got different, we can set up if it's going to sound like jazz or church, we can adjust the key click, all kinds of great stuff. Rotary, let's have a listen to this one. I'm really just getting started on this. Literally, I've only played with it for maybe 5-6 hours total. Like I said, I've read the manual. The manual's actually quite well written. There's a sense of humor in it. So many manuals. I know Yamaha, MoDX manual. It's extremely complete and extremely technical. Roland, I'm sorry, their manuals really suck. It's basically a little more than a sales brochure. The manual on this one, it doesn't cover absolutely everything, but it tells you what you need to know, and it does it in a real conversive language that's easy to read. If you sit with a manual and maybe a couple YouTube videos, you'll have this working fairly quickly. As I learn more, I'm sure I'm going to produce some more videos, show what I found. In the meantime, if you do like what you see, please click that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You'll never miss another great video like this one. Thanks for watching.